Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube audiobook series for The Forbidden Truth, written by Abby Matthias. I am Abby Davis, and today I will be introducing Chapter 4. If you missed Chapter 3, link is in the description below, or use the playlist in the description below also. You can go back and watch those other chapters and listen along. Otherwise, if you are all caught up and ready to go, we will continue on with Chapter 4, Satanic Mischief. What?
Abby screamed after I confessed my fear of Satan planning something. I know. Just let me talk, I said, trying to get her to be patient. I knew this was out of the blue and frightening to hear, but I had to tell her what was going on and how I was planning to go about this. When I switched back with you this afternoon, I went back down to hell to give you two lovebirds privacy. However, when I did so, I found a letter taped to my door. The contents said that Satan is planning a visit sometime within the next few days during the night. So comparing demon time to human, I'm gonna say he is coming tonight or tomorrow.
Oh my god.
She reacted.
Who sent you that letter and how do you know if it's true?
I don't know. I just have a good feeling, I said. I never had this happen before. It has to be true. I don't know who would have wrote that letter, but I'm not taking any chances.
And how are we going to go about this, Darius? It's not like we can just run away from him,
she said, slightly panicked. I can't, but you can.
What do you mean I can? I'm your protector, child. We're bonded with each other. Another thing, I'll be sleeping in my bed if he arrives, and I'm not comfortable drifting off knowing he's coming.
At that point, I decided to show Abby what I meant instead of telling her. I knew my plan was going to be somewhat risky, but it at least guaranteed her safety and some comfort. So I extended my left arm out to grab her by the upper arm. I managed, with the power of thought, to switch without her thinking about it. I knew I did it earlier and was surprised I was able to do so, but besides the point, after a brief moment I was staring at Abby in her demon spirit as I possessed her human body. She gasped a bit from the abruptness of the switch, but she gathered herself quickly to make visual contact with me again. This is what I mean, I said.
First of all, what did we just talk about with doing this? And second, I still don't get what your point is.
This is the key to my plan, I stated, gesturing to her. When you go to sleep tonight, I want you to leave your body and become your demon spirit. From there, I will teleport us down to hell and—
You're taking me down to hell?
She exclaimed as she stood up in panic. Yes, I am. But you're not letting me finish. There's more to it.
What do you mean more? You seriously think this is a good idea?
Abby, just let me explain, I voiced calmly. She continued looking at me with wide eyes and shock as I continued. Once you are in your demon spirit like you are now, I will teleport us to my home down in hell. You can sleep in my bed and occupy my house while I am up here watching over your body. That way, when he does come up, I'll be here, and you won't.
You want to leave me down there? What happens if someone comes to your door?
I very rarely get visitors. That shouldn't be an issue. But if someone knocks, you don't answer and stay quiet. Another thing, I do not want to leave you down there. Unless you want to stay up here and deal with the douchebag of the hour, I don't see another way to do this.
But how would I be allowed down there? I'm not dead. You even told me so it's legal for humans to be down there.
No, you're not. But because you look and sound like a succubus, you have access. I wouldn't be able to bring your actual body down because it's still human, but with this form, I can. All I want to do is keep you safe and far away from his shenanigans as much as possible. Please, just do this so I know you'll be okay. After a moment's pause, she nodded her head and we waited for time to pass. It was around 9:45 p.m. when I happened to put her body to sleep. So, I left it to slumber while I exited the vessel. I lost my balance for a bit, as I was just thrown into a random spot in the room, but I now faced Abby as myself. I know she isn't used to her demon spirit. To be honest, I wasn't either. She didn't use it a lot, and she had characteristics that were similar to mine, such as 2 different skin colors and her height. Yet, I couldn't do anything about them, so I just kept brushing the feelings away and focused myself to execute my plan. I extended my arm out to Abby to signal her to grab it. However, she had to question it by being hesitant. I need you to hold onto my arm while we teleport. I am assuming if you hold onto me, you will come with me too. She swallowed hard and took a deep breath before obeying my request. She grabbed a hold of my arm with her hand. Once she was ready, I tapped the snake and rose marking to travel us down to hell. Within a span of a few seconds, I saw my house and felt Abby grab my arm even tighter. I brought my hand up to hers to ensure she was alright and said, "Welcome to my home. Let's get inside." I unlocked my door and allowed her to enter first to be polite. As we walked in, I glanced around to make sure nothing was tampered or out of place. I couldn't find anything suspicious, so I closed and locked the door again. Abby stood in the middle of the room while I secured the premises. I started with the curtains and made sure they were shut, lit the small torch hanging on the wall, and made sure all potential entryways were locked. Upon finishing, I gestured her to the bed to sit and make herself comfortable. I know this isn't the grandest place ever, but it will make do for what we need it for.
I know. I'm just trying to familiarize myself with my surroundings.
I don't blame you. And I walked over to my small kitchen to make myself a drink. I started making myself a whiskey on the rocks and offered her the same. She protested a bit because she wasn't 21 yet, but I also reminded her that she was in the demon world and not within her own body. After that fact, she changed her mind and looked animate to have one. I didn't make hers as strong as mine, but I poured enough to make her want to go to sleep. This was her first time after all, and I didn't want to knock her off her ass. So after I was done, I made my way over to her to deliver the drink. I sat in my desk chair and huffed a sigh. All this was just tiring to me. Satan couldn't just leave us alone. I felt like I had to jump over hurdles just to protect Abby from him. Yep, that's all I could do to keep her out of things. That was just the truth about all of this. Yet if that's what it will take to make sure she's protected, I was going to jump hurdles forever to ensure her safety.
I mean, this wasn't at all how I pictured your home. I thought it was going to be worse, to be honest.
She said, taking a swig of her drink. She coughed a little, like I figured, because of the alcohol, but she regained herself after a few seconds. Yeah, I've seen worse houses than this, I replied, taking a sip of my drink as well.
Hey, Darius.
She said, trying to get my attention. I turned my head to face her and listened to her question.
What happened when you became a demon?
I became Satan's dealmaker. I already told you that.
That's not what I meant. I'm asking about what happened after he changed you.
That question left me a little stunned. I didn't think she would ask that, but to hopefully bore her and get her to sleep faster, I answered. Well, for starters, I don't remember a whole lot right after I signed the contract with him. But I do recall waking up in a different room than the hospital room I was in. Some random area within hell. I didn't know it was hell at first, but everything seemed to have a dark orange tint to it. My head was disoriented and began to hurt, as you have experienced before. After examining myself and trying to comprehend things, I knew something was off. I instantly went to the nearest mirror to find that I was changed. I somewhat freaked out and was about to bust through the door. However, Brutus was standing just outside it when I opened it.
Who's Brutus?
She said with a swing in her voice. I think the alcohol was somewhat getting to her now, but she was somehow still comprehending things. So I answered and continued. He's Satan's assistant. I didn't know him obviously at that point, but I eventually found that out. He led me to Satan's office, and from there I was told about my new job, along with how I was to spend the rest of my eternity in this godforsaken place. Once I finished my speech, I chugged the rest of my drink and slammed the glass onto the desk. However, as I looked at Abby, I seen she was swaying her head slightly and spoke again.
How can you say God? Doesn't that burn demons? Wait, it didn't burn me.
That's a good question for another day. We need to get you to bed, I said with a slight chuckle. She tried protesting me, but it was easy enough to tuck her in and soothe her with the facial brushing technique. After about 5 demon minutes, she fell asleep, and I was left to return to her body. As I waited for something to happen, I sat in her computer chair watching her body sleep. Time slowly ticked by, and I couldn't help but let my mind roam in thought. It started opening and closing manila folders of memories and brought up one of the worst flashbacks ever. All because of Abby's question about my demon existence. Again, I don't remember what happened exactly after I sealed the contract with Satan. I either passed out or my memory was wiped somehow. Regardless, I recalled that the first sight I took in afterwards was an extremely high ceiling. My eyes took a brief moment to adjust before I could take any observations. But once my view wasn't obstructed by blurriness, I saw everything seemed to have a dark orange tint. The mysterious room had one bookshelf while torches were scattered along the walls to light the room. Large window curtains were closed while the rest of the room looked very plain. As for my body, it laid on some sort of couch thing. It was almost like an examination table found in hospitals, yet it was a little more comfortable. Eventually, when I felt able, I sat myself up to feel my head was extremely heavy. Along with that, a striking pain was throbbing on my forehead as gravity settled upon it. Bringing my hand up to try and console it, the path was somewhat obstructed. I managed to touch my skin with my fingertips. However, when I brought my arm down to look at my hand, I saw 2 disturbing problems. The first was that I was bleeding, and the second was that my hand and skin tone were extremely different. My hand was larger, with black pointy claws as fingernails. There was fresh red blood coated on them, yet I was more alarmed by the red skin tone. I quickly moved my gaze downward to view the rest of my arm and body was different. Eventually, out of shock, I stood up and took note that I was extremely tall. My height was abnormal and made me feel like a giant. Panicked, I looked about the room to find a mirror upon the back wall and sprang to it. From there, I took in the sight of a demon who had red skin, tannish horns with skin and blood hanging from their bases, yellowish-green eyes, a red wave-textured shirt, and black pants. I was extremely confused and terrified of what I was beholding. I didn't know what happened or even where I was, so I quickly made my way to the window to open the curtains. All I saw was flames and other demons walking about a strange city. From just that, I knew I was in the mythical place of hell. I just didn't know if it was reality or dream. Either way, it freaked me out to where I ran for the door. As I opened it, I saw a smaller demon with a clipboard who I now know as Brutus that stopped me in my tracks. He looked at me up and down and started to speak.
Well, I see you've awakened. We can get someone to look at your injuries from obtaining horns, but for now...
What in the fuck are you talking about? What the hell is going on and who are you? I screamed. At that point, I heard my voice was lower and reacted to that as well. It didn't faze Brutus one bit, and he said another sentence.
If you just follow me this way, I will take you to see the Dark Overlord.
Then, he turned around and started walking away. I felt obligated to follow him because of my lack of knowledge, so I walked behind him until he led me to an office of some sort. Once I was in the room, Brutus left and closed the door as I saw a muscular demon sitting in the room. He looked up from his desk and glared at me with an evil smirk on his face before he spoke.
Well, if it isn't the man of the hour, Darius,
he said in a raspy voice. He then stood up and I saw he was a little taller than me, but not by much. However, that didn't stop me from lashing out. Who the hell are you? Where am I? What the hell is going on?
don't you remember? You work for me now.
No, I fucking don't, I exclaimed in denial. I work for Grandview Medical Hospital as a doctor.
Not since you made that deal.
At that point, he made a piece of paper appear out of thin air. I saw it had my signature on it. It was the deal that I made with the other doctor. I looked at him with disbelief and started questioning it. How the hell did you get that? I made that deal with another human, not some rusty demon creature thing.
I am that human.
He then proceeded to change his eyes to the same shade as the man I signed the contract with, and I couldn't believe it. I stood there in shock as he continued his declaration.
You signed this contract stating you would work for me in payment of curing your son. This is what the terms and conditions are that we settled upon. Now, you will work for me as the deal maker.
You tricked me. You told me I would be working at a hospital, and I still don't know who you are. As I yelled, I had another horrible hypothesis plant itself into my head. Did you kill me? He then huffed and responded.
There's a reason why you don't have a heartbeat.
At that statement, I placed my hand over my heart and didn't feel it beating. And as I stood there petrified, he continued on.
Now, I don't have time for this at the moment. Report back here at 62 a.m. and I will explain your new job. Just tell Brutus you have an appointment with Satan, and he will lead you to me.
What? Where am I even going? I am not done having this conversation with you.
But I am. So goodbye.
Within that moment, He snapped his fingers, and I was suddenly outside the living quarters, and in the city where my demon life begun officially. As the end of the memory was playing, I heard a thud within the room and quickly shook myself to attention. To the left of me was the very monster who, in a sense, murdered me. Satan stood on his feet with a stiff stature as his eyes glowed under the LED lights in a room.
Hello, Darius.
Hello, Satan, I replied back in the same tone. After that, we glared at each other with aggression. I sure as hell wasn't going to start this conversation, so I kept the silence between us until he spoke.
Well, now, I never get a greeting like that from you. It's nice to know you're complying.
I'm not complying for your sake. I'm complying for hers, seeing how you came unexpectedly, and I don't want to wake her up. Now what do you want?
Oh, yes, she's very beautiful while she sleeps unknowingly. But I suppose you're gonna yell at me to be quiet if I continue, so I'll change the topic.
I grew somewhat shocked as that statement came out of his mouth. He never complied or used better judgment when it came to other demons. However, this was a huge red flag if I ever saw one. He wanted something of me, but I didn't know what.
Last time I spoke to you, I said you better figure out what is happening between your protector child and yourself. I am here to collect those answers.
All I can say is that you're fishing for answers that even I don't know yet.
How can you not know, Darius?
He scolded.
These are your changes that you have to experience. How do you not know?
I am well aware of the unknown developments I have been through. However, I had to research everything about them when you threw me into this job. Which brings me to the only answer I can give you. Every protector demon adapts to their child's needs. These unknown advantages must be involved with that piece of information. After my response, he brought his hand to his face and breathed a sigh. By his actions, I could tell he was frustrated, maybe even almost defeated. Yet he composed himself fast and took in a deep breath.
Okay, fine. Then list all of the powers you have.
He said through clenched teeth. Why? I don't see how that would help us in any way. With that reply, he lifted his hand to me and flung his blue force at me to make me stand. From the abruptness of it, my balance was thrown off for a moment, but I gained it quickly before Satan spoke again.
Stop arguing and just show me if you don't want to say it out loud.
You should already know. The powers I gained you have seen before. I had to use them to protect her. I saw the anger grow upon his face as he listened to my response. Yet that was the truth, or at least what I was willing to tell him. I wasn't going to talk about the second pair of arms or even the muscle growth. I didn't want him to get any weird or sexual ideas. Another reason is because he would only punish me for the new powers. It seems like every time he finds out about a new power, I always get backlash for it. The greatest example of all was when we found out about the fire power. He purposely waited to catch me off guard and placed these spiked cuffs on my wrists. Not only that, but he was torturing Abby with his aggression towards me. That entire scene was horrible to watch, and I was not about to go through that again.
Darius?
Speaking of which, she called out to me as soon as I was thinking of her. So to keep Satan occupied and protect myself, I displayed the force field and started talking to her in the head. Hey, I can't talk long because Satan's up here.
Something is happening to me.
What do you mean something is happening?
I'm in pain for some reason. All I did was sleep and walk around when I suddenly formed striking pain within my back.
Okay, I will come back down as soon as I am done with Dickhead over here. Just lay on your stomach and don't move around a lot. I'm sure it's nothing. After that, I disabled my shield and moved onto the red force that allowed me to move objects. I was picking up the simplest of things to not make much noise. I even allowed myself to adjust the blankets her body was using to ensure it didn't get cold. Though I thought these powers were very minor, Satan felt different about them, especially when it came to the firepower. That seemed to be his main focus. As I was showing him the other abilities, he intruded and said,
I don't care about those ones. I want to see the flames.
Why is that so important to you? It's just a firepower.
Because it is. Now let me see it.
He yelled. Well, I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like that. I just can't conjure it from thin air.
What do you mean? I seen you do it.
Yes, but it only happens when I get angry. At least from what I've noticed. After that response, he smiled and breathed almost a sigh of relief. Upon himself relaxing, he brushed his shirt and spoke again.
I knew it. You're still one of the weakest demons I know. Now, I hope you continue having fun with those cuffs and collar of yours.
At that statement, he waved his arm towards me again, and I flew back onto the wall while my arms pinned themselves above my head. Now, with the cuffs, when I first started with them, I felt them jerking my wrists around and fling my body every which way. However, this time it didn't feel like the cuffs were tugging me around. It was as if my arms just responded to his gesture. I still felt I had control of my arms and I could pull them down willingly. Yet even given the circumstance, I still felt obligated to play along with the charade. My arms have never done this on their own before, but the more important idea was that I haven't had problems with them since the new arms came in. No spontaneous tricks or physical violence were given to me like within the first week. And knowing that, I decided to play along and act defeated. I tugged my arms to create the illusion of trying to break away from the wall. I didn't take my arms down and just stared at Satan aggressively. He just smiled and waved his hand back down, and my arms jerked back to their sides. After that, he spoke a final time before he disappeared into thin air.
It's about time you submit to your ruler. Such a good boy.
And he laughed as he faded away. That last statement of his wasn't true at all. I wasn't ever going to obey him and change my demeanor. The only reason why I cooperated with him was because Abby was talking to me in the head. Reflecting upon that, I remembered she was telling me that she was in pain, so slightly panicked now, I teleported myself back into my home to check up on her. Okay, Abby, I'm back. What's going... I said, turning myself around to her. I stopped mid-sentence to take in quite a sight. I saw a pair of feathered wings curled together on my bed. However, after a little bit they unfolded themselves and revealed my human hugging herself with her legs snug in her chest. I could see her tears as they slowly rolled down her face, and her rapid breathing as she whimpered and hyperventilated. She moved her eyes to take in my reaction and spoke.
Darius, what's wrong with me?
With that question, my mind instantly started to think and process how to deal with this dilemma.
This has been Chapter 4, Satanic Mischief, from the book The Forbidden Truth. Tune in to the next video for Chapter 5. Thank you for listening.